Hello, this is Dr. Lang, and welcome to this presentation, which is a continuation in my series on holistic health. The question is it spiritually safe? Is it spiritually safe? And I guess the question is, well, what is it? And that, of course, is what I like to talk about today, which is a direct result of a conversation that I had with a patient at some length on the whole topic of what's spiritually safe and what is not. Now, first of all, the context of all of these comments is a whole person health approach to wellness and health. That's health of body, mind, and spirit. And today, obviously, we're going to be speaking about the spiritual side of this triangle and trying to share some ideas that might be right, exactly what you believe already. These may be ideas that you've never thought about. And so these are my reflections after being in medicine for almost 40 years and seeing lots of patients with lots of different problems. And because of this model, I do pay attention to the spiritual things that are going on in people's lives and try to be sensitive to what might have caused the spiritual side to go south, if indeed that's what's going on. So the reason that we were talking about this subject is that the patient was interested in some of the things that I have explored because of my interest in non-pharmacologic ways to manage pain. There's two things that I've done a lot of work with and developed Christian versions of them. Both of them are fairly common. One is called emotional freedom technique. And so I've developed a Christian version of that. And the second thing is called Gong. Now that's not quite as popular as Tai Chi. It's not as well known as Tai Chi, but it's actually much more ancient than Tai Chi. And I use Gong as a way for healing. It activates the healing, the natural healing systems that are built into our body. And what I explained to this patient was that he was dealing with pain and trying to get over the issues he was having without having to use prescription pain medicine. And so the question was, what are the issues that might be going on that I would want to be cautious using one of these strategies? So we talked about how the mind is kind of divided into three broad areas that I like to talk about. This is obviously just a way to talk about it. Can't really see this, but on top we have the conscious mind. Obviously, we're aware of just about everything that's going on there, at least when we're paying attention. And then just immediately below the conscious is the subconscious. So between the conscious and the subconscious, there's an interaction that happens a lot. We will sense things bubbling up from the subconscious, the things that aren't real deep, but they're there, and they will bubble up into our consciousness occasionally. You've experienced this many times a day. Ideas just pop into your head. They just came from nowhere, so to speak, but they're in your subconscious. Your subconscious is reminding you of something or telling you something. But deep down in the subconscious are things that are deeply buried that we have almost no awareness of. Now, the subconscious is self-aware. It knows what's going on in the whole part of it, but our consciousness doesn't connect with everything in the subconscious. And then at the deepest level, the subconscious is connected with the spiritual life. Now, the spiritual life is obviously this huge reservoir of power and force and wonder and lots of things that people have attempted to explore over the years. And obviously, I consider it important for health. It's the foundation of this little triangle. But the question is, how do you do it safely? And is there anything that might be unsafe about it? Well, the question is the spiritual realm totally safe? Is there anything unsafe about the spiritual realm? Well, from a Christian perspective, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's unsafe about the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is inhabited by beings that are both very good and very bad, and there's nothing much in between. Now, one of the problems, and this is what we talked about with this patient today, is that the very bad can disguise themselves as the very good, and your subconscious can't tell the difference. We do not have the spiritual faculties to tell the difference. And so that interaction between the deep subconscious and the spiritual is potentially a dangerous place. Now, it's usually held carefully at bay by God, unless somebody makes the mistake of inviting spiritual resources into their subconscious. Now, if you do that, it's like opening the floodgates and not knowing who's going to come through. And that's what happens to a lot of people. And I see some of these patients as my patients. And sometimes it's happened not so long ago, a few days ago. Sometimes it's been years ago that they did something that opened the door to some spiritual entity that has now influenced them in a negative way for the rest of their lives. And I'm not going to get into a lot of that, just to say, I believe that that is a potential every time that you mess around in the deep subconscious, that you are inviting spiritual resources into your life. What I told this patient was that the only safe way to do that, is to do it in the name of Jesus. If you walk into the spiritual world without Jesus, you walk in blind. And if you think that you have the insight to see what's going on in the spiritual world, then you're just being a fool, because we can't see it, and we can be easily deceived. And the spiritual forces that do not have you as in their, they don't have your good as one of their goals. They will lead you gradually. They're not going to show up in a red suit with horns on their head and a tail made from with a long dagger. They're going to show up disguised as really normal looking beings, probably happy, light bearing beings, but quite capable of leading people astray. And they do that through a variety of strategies, which I won't go into. But people that are attracted to the spiritual are aware of these things, because that's what they seek. And virtually every positive spiritual thing can be disguised or can be presented in a disguise. And so I just want you to be aware of that, because it's a principle that many people are not aware of. And in this politically correct day and age, it's not politically correct to say that one religion is right and one religion is wrong, one religion is safe and one religion is not. But I'm going out on a limb to be politically incorrect and saying, well, that just happens to be the way it is. There is one safe way to enter the spiritual world, and that's in the protection of Jesus, in the name of Jesus. And that's one of the things he came to save us from, was our ways of being deceived spiritually and being bound spiritually. So for that reason, I have created Christian versions of a lot of different things that are generally spiritually neutral, but the fact that they are spiritually neutral doesn't mean they're safe, because they can open us up to spiritual resources that we can't really discern very accurately. So I have created a Christian version of EFT, and I call it the Christian Freedom Technique. I have created a Christian version of Qigong so that patients can do simple Qigong exercises while they're literally praying and imagining different scenes with Jesus, and experience healing in that way. So the most ultimate of the healing Jesus disciplines, I believe, is learning the Jesus prayer, which is one of the things that I teach at length. So the point that I want to make is that I do want you to, whether or not you believe all of what I've just said, perhaps you will believe that the spiritual world is not completely benign, and that there are some forces at work that are not totally benign. And you don't have to look very far in the way that our world is going with the increasing craziness that's happening to know that what I've just said is true. The question is, how are you approaching the spiritual world? Are you doing it in a safe way? And or are you taking chances? Because you open that door in an area that you can't see well and you can't discern accurately, I think you open yourself to danger. So I hope that this reflection has been helpful without being offensive to those who might believe otherwise spiritually. I wish you well. God bless and have a great day.